Hello, everybody. Kevin Luther here, owner and winemaker at Voluptuary Lucid Wines.
And I'm Jerome Luther. I'm his brother and helper here at the winery.
Yeah, he's a humble man. He's the hidden power behind Voluptuary Lucid and does a lot of behind the scenes shipping and got all of you guys who are tasting here today your wine tasting kits, just as you see here in front of you. Whatever you guys drink at home, he's the guy who takes care of all that.
He's still the great Oz. I'm just the guy behind the curtain.
It's a good match, and really proud to be working with my brother here on these locally produced urban industrial micro wines that we make here. I'm a small winemaker here in Sacramento, California, and we make our wines in a very small winery in an industrial urban setting. So thank you guys for supporting us. Thank you for joining us for this wine tasting. And yeah, look forward to tasting through this beautiful lineup of five wines. We have a white, a rosé, and three reds that we're going to be tasting through today that you'll also have in front of you. So we're going to start off because I'm going to tell you a little bit about our winery and myself and giving you some context for everything. But I find that I and we are a lot more interesting when you have a little bit of wine in your glass. So you can pour that first one. That is the L1 Skin Contact Chardonnay.
Yeah,
So
and those of you out here, we have these set up because not everybody has the full bottle set. We've got a variety of different options. So some of you have the 50 ml kits, some of you have the 100 ml kits, and some of you have full bottles. So we show this so you can see what they look like, but you might be pulling yours from the little mini bottles.
exactly. So whatever you're tasting with, thank you for joining us. And this first wine is going to be the L1 Skin Contact Chardonnay blend. So this is very different from your normal Chardonnay. Chardonnays tend to be very oaky, buttery, kind of over the top. I was going for a much more fruit forward style here. So Chardonnay, its natural fruit, expresses more peach, pear, apple, orchard fruits, and a little bit of citrus. Viognier, as a blending component, 25% of this blend, brings in more tropical fruits and floral notes and really boosts that fruit aromatic. And then secondarily, the fact that this wine is skin contact fermented, which is a rare technique for white wine, really accentuates the fruit characteristics as well as a spicy breath to the body.
And what is skin contact? That it's when it's aged on the skins, or like, can you explain that process a little more?
Absolutely, yeah. So skin contact is a ancient technique of winemaking where white wine is fermented on the skins, and this is really rare because typically in the modern era, white wines are fermented just the juice, and this
Mm-hmm.
gives you a very fruity, light white wine, like what we're used to. You think Sauvignon Blanc, that sort of lightness. Now, if you ferment on the skins, this is an ancient technique actually discovered by an alcohol archaeologist, which is like the coolest job ever. And he discovered that ancient winemaking in Georgia, which is one of the first countries to ever make wine, what they did was they crushed white grapes and fermented the juice and skins and stems all together and actually buried them in a ceramic pot in the ground.
Because back then they would have these refined processes and barrel aging and this and that.
Yeah.
They used the pots they had, crushed the grapes, and just let the fermentation happen.
Yeah, and just aged it in the ground. So kind of crazy. That's quite antiquated. So our technique is a little more modern, but we do ferment on the skins for about 2 weeks, extract intense fruit flavors from those skins, as well as some spice and a little more body than you're used to seeing in a white wine, and then aged it in barrels like the ones behind us. So these are neutral oak barrels. They add a little bit of oak flavor. And then on top of that, I aged this wine on apple wood and acacia, which it's a really rare thing to age wine on anything but oak. But these other woods, the apple, accentuates the apple flavor. And you might even notice in this wine, it has this almost apple cider, mold apple cider kind of characteristic going on.
You can actually almost see that as well. It's got a little bit of cloudiness, and it's got that amber color from the skin contact.
Yeah,
All kind of remind me of the cider, the apples.
exactly. And that amber color, a lot of people call this orange wine or golden wine, referring to that color and that kind of, you know, the flavor intensity and the orangish kind of flavors. You get the peach, the citrus, but it's confusing because some people call it orange wine and it makes you think it comes from oranges. This is purely white grapes fermented on the skins with a golden orangish color from that skin contact.
It's I'm a big fan of this one, and I think a lot of it is because of those styles there. Your traditional Chardonnay, which there's nothing wrong with that. Every wine, has a different taste and for different people.
Mm-hmm.
But this is absolutely not that. And that buttery, oaky, like traditional Chardonnay isn't for me. And this one is perfect because of all those orchard fruits and that like funk and body from the skin contact.
Exactly. I think this is the white wine for non-white wine drinkers, or like it's a really good fall and winter white wine where it's just a little more complexity to it, a little more going on. Awesome during
That.
summer cold, but it's really nice during winter. Like you can almost serve this at normal red wine serving temperature to get more of those intense aromatics.
Put it with some pumpkin pie with some spice with it.
That sounds really good, actually. So that's this first wine in terms of flavors and winemaking. So now that we've given a little bit of wine in your glass and you guys are tasting along with us, I want to give you a little context for who we are and why you're tasting wine with us. So we are Voluptuary Lucid Wines. Like I say, we're here in Sacramento, California, and we are a tiny little winery. I launched this as a side project while running other folks' wineries, much, much larger wineries. And I wanted to launch a winery that focused on things I was really passionate about. Organically grown grapes, organic winemaking, sulfite-free, vegan, all the things that match my personal values and things that I do and how I eat and how I interact with the world. So I tried to encompass that in my winemaking and in the wineries that I launched. And so focusing on that and then really getting back to handcrafted small production winemaking that I'm doing here at Voluptuary Lucid. So my background before launching out on my own was I went to UC Davis and got my degree in viticulture and enology. And after getting the degree there, I hopped around the world and globetrotted and hopped over to Australia and Argentina, New Zealand, Oregon, Paso Robles, and apprenticed at a bunch of different wineries to gain experience and really just learn all the nuts and bolts of the craft of winemaking.
Are you sure the alcohol archaeologist is the coolest job ever? Because that doesn't sound too horrible either.
It wasn't a bad way to spend my 20s, traveling the world, learning winemaking. So I had a really good time doing that, as well as a lot of experience to see how different countries made wine and really gain insight into all these different techniques of winemaking. So then I came back to Sacramento, California, my hometown, and started running other people's wineries for them, building them up from startups to medium-sized wineries. So really helping other people succeed in their winemaking and being this behind-the-scenes guy running the vineyard and winery in that way. And while doing that, I went back to school and got a second degree in wine business from Sonoma State, as well as a sommelier type degree called WSET, to just broaden all my experience and gain all the knowledge I needed to finally launch my own brand. Like, okay, I've built other people's wineries up. Let's focus on something I really care about. So launching Voluptuary and Lucid 3 years ago, really, again, wanted to get back to my values. All the ways I was making the wine, but also donating $1 from every bottle to nonprofits, the Sacramento Tree Foundation for most of our first year, and just generally local nonprofits, a lot of environmental stuff and causes we believe in. So that's still core to us from the beginning. Our first year in existence, the only way people could taste our wine was by tasting us at nonprofit pouring events. We were doing that almost weekly. Jerome was doing a lot of those pourings and just trying to work within the community and give back and create some nice karmic cycles.
And that's why I joined the company, is that one, he was growing too fast to handle as a one-man company, and two, he stands for a lot of things I believe in. Not only the causes, weekly we were doing charity events, but also just making good wine that's not only made ethically, but made deliciously. So I was director of design and development at a company that built things. I managed the estimating and project management and drafting departments, but couldn't pass up the opportunity to do this, drink wine and make food pairings and work with charities. And so I came and joined him here, and it's been it's been wonderful since. That was awesome. About a year ago.
It's been an awesome pairing, having Jerome help me run things behind the scenes. And so, all of that propelled to the point where I finally quit my day job and, running someone else's winery, put all my life savings into really launching to the next level. And in spring 2020, we had our launch party. I'd rented this roller door in this industrial lot, put my life savings towards this one thing and launching our tasting room in March. We had our launch party scheduled for March 28th. We had bands and circus performers and food trucks all lined up, and a couple hundred people were going to be coming. And just a few days before, the stay-at-home order for COVID hit. So it was like the worst possible timing to do a business launch and to really launch to that next level. So we just brainstormed and quickly adapted. I had this backburnered idea that I'd had for a long time to do wine tasting kits and virtual tastings, but it never quite seemed the right time. And it was like, okay, now's the time, now or never, because we can't launch physically and who knows what's going to happen. So we launched the kits, we launched the virtual tasting, announced it on Instagram, and in 24 hours sold out our first 100 kits.
And then managed to coordinate it and film it in less than a week on the date that our original live tasting was going to be.
Yeah, it worked out great because honestly, when we announced it, it was just like, okay, we need to do this. We had no idea how to do it. Like we
it's like lying on a resume and then figuring it out your first week on the job.
Yeah, pretty much. And so we figured out the kits, we figured out the virtual tastings, and we did it. And it just really exponentially blew up from there. We started doing weekly virtual tastings. You know, the kits grew and got refined to the point where we were getting so many views, 20,000 views on Facebook and hundreds of kits a week, that we started getting more and more inquiries from large groups and corporate groups. So a lot of you guys watching today are probably corporate groups or large family groups. Thank you all for joining us. And thank you for your support of our small business micro winery. My thank you for helping my dream and our dream come true, and keep us alive through all these crazy apocalyptic times. So without further ado, let's continue rolling into this wine. So this first wine, the L1 Skin Contact, hopefully you're all enjoying that wine. I want to introduce you to a little bit of our pairings here. So food pairings for this, I think this goes great because it has a little bit of creaminess and a little richness with white sauces and creamier cheeses, but also because it does have a lot of fruit characteristics. All the fruits you're tasting in this, those fruits, those cheeses, goes really well with this wine overall.
Yeah, and apples or light crisp fruits.
Yeah,
I can very much see that.
Yeah, and then also because there's a bit of a crisp citrus component, this can go really well with oysters and citrus. So it can play into that area, but it can play into something a little more rich too. It's a nice middle ground white wine.
It lives in both worlds. You've got that little bit of funk and body where you can pair it with cheeses and mushrooms and white sauce, and then you also have that crispness to go with the seafood or the orchard fruits and things along those lines.
Yeah, I wasn't originally thinking mushrooms, but I could totally see like an oyster mushroom or something with a little bit of
not like your funky shiitake or anything like that. But yeah, exactly, an oyster mushroom or maybe like a white button mushroom.
And we'll talk about this throughout the evening, but the different pairings, all wine and food pairing there's a lot going on there, and you can use a lot of rules of thumb in terms of like matching food and wine that come from a similar region, or matching up food and wine that have certain aligned flavors. And there's all these different rules, but in the end, assemble a bunch of good food in front of you, have some food, have some wine. You can almost not go wrong, because good wine, good food, and good company is pretty much the key to life.
Yeah, try it all.
Yeah, exactly. So some good food pairings there, and then music pairings for this. Our music pairing is Chill or Be Chilled by the Polish ambassador, Nicki Minaj. It's one of Nicki's more relaxed songs. Very chill. And it's about kind of relaxing on a tropical vacation, really.
Something we'd all like to be doing right now.
Yeah, and that's my life pairing for this. This was pre-COVID written. My life pairing for this is a tropical vacation, but during COVID you can't go on a tropical vacation. So my pairing for this is, sitting in bed in your pajamas during COVID, drinking a bottle of wine, maybe straight out of the bottle, while watching the movie Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, and I think of this one as like a self-care, self-love type of wine. Like, this is the wine that you would want when you're, getting a massage, or like taking a bubble bath, or just like relaxing around and just treating yourself. So ironically, given that it's the Skin Contact, I think of it as a solo wine, but I really do feel that way with this one.
Yeah, no, I feel that too. So, okay, and then to finish up, my literary pairing for this is from Charles Baudelaire. And he says, "One should always be drunk. That's all that matters. But with what? With wine, with poetry, or with virtue, as you choose. But get drunk." And I think what this ancient poet was trying to say was that one should be passionate about something, whether that's,
breathe wine. It in until you're intoxicated with it, whatever you're doing.
That's well put. I like that. Exactly. So be passionate about something, breathe it in, become intoxicated with we encourage wine, but there are other things to be intoxicated with. So, yeah, that's the first wine. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And we're going to roll into our second wine, the L2 Urban Flora Rosé. So, I often get asked, do you need a particular wine glass or, a special style of, way to taste wine? And I always tell people the most important thing is to keep your pinky out. That always makes it classy, no matter what. But no, I mean, the simple answer is you don't need a special glass. It's fun. It's kind of nice to have all these different glasses, and I like to goof around with it, but absolutely no need to have any special glass. I often drink out of a mason jar, and, really whatever works for you, just have fun with it. Wine is both serious and not serious at all. You got to have fun with it.
I would say actually the mason jar is more appropriate than that one there because it's all about utility in my mind. And the one thing about the wine glasses being concave at the end there is you're not going to spill it out when you're aerating it. When you do it with one of these, it tends to, your vortex flies out and you got a tornado in your face.
It's a good point, because one of the main reasons for a wine glass is actually the swirling, which helps. What you're doing is you're essentially agitating the wine to volatilize it so you can get more intense aromatics out of the wine.
And if you do that, you can actually, and this is a good one for that because it's got a lot of those aromatics, that if you swirl that, you can really smell those floral notes and those light fruit notes just kind of wafting out.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you can give that a sniff and a smell, and yeah, very fruit forward, a lot of watermelon, strawberry, cherry, berry type fruit flavors. You might also get a little more crispness, like a cranberry hibiscus kind of thing going on. So I think it's got this nice mix of those red, pink fruits and crisp aspects. And you're going to notice it's a darker style rosé. That comes from the fact that this is a Saunier style rosé of Barbera and Pinot Noir primarily, with a pinch of Muscat. And Saunier comes from a Latin root of to bleed, that you have these skins and juice together, extracting color and red fruit flavor into the juice. So you go from a clear juice, the juice of a red berry is still clear. As you ferment the skins and juice together, you start to get a little bit of extraction of that red fruit flavor into the juice. And after a day or two, I will Saunier this off, so bleed off that juice, which is extract a little bit of that red flavor, a little bit of that red color. And as opposed to some rosés that are saunier or pressed off immediately and have a very light color, but also have a very light flavor. I want a little more flavor intensity. I want that light red, pink fruit flavor, and just a little more going on, because I think rosés these days have turned towards this copper salmon color, and they're just pure crisp acidity, and it's like, okay, it's not as fun anymore. This has more fruit, but it's not sweet. It's I think a nicely balanced rosé.
Yeah, I agree. It's still like a nice, dangerous, day drinking wine, but it's not like that wine cooler that so many rosés become by being so sweet and light that it's not really. It doesn't seem like it's quite wine anymore.
Exactly.
It's more like your alcoholic Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and those rosés have their place, the sweeter style rosés, the sweeter style wines, but I was definitely trying to strike a balance where it's so fruit forward and dangerously easy to drink that it has that fun of that sweeter style rosé, but while still being drier and serious and crisp enough to be just refreshing at the same time.
Yeah, and then we get that a lot on this one, the people talking about it being really sweet, but it's not really. It's a dry wine, and none of these have really residual sugars in them. It's so fruit forward and with those floral notes that it kind of comes across that way, but just because of the flavor profile.
Exactly. So all that fruit gives this impression of sweetness without actually being sweet. So that's kind of the flavor profile and how the wine is made. I mentioned it comes from Barbera grapes, which give a little more of the darker fruit and acidity, and Pinot Noir, which gives you a little more of the light red fruit. So, that's the winemaking and flavor profile. In terms of pairings, this wine, by the way, with the music pairings, feel free to throw on the music pairings if you're like, oh gosh, I don't even care what this guy's saying. Just mute us and play the music while you're drinking the wine. I've heard that actually, tasting along with the music pairings, or you can have it in the background while we're talking, is a kind of cool experience, because the music pairings are meant to kind of capture the energy of the wine and reflect metaphorically in a way that, kind of the way I feel this wine is meant to be drank and consumed is, in the context of that music. So for this wine, it is All the Time by Bahamas. This is a song about relaxing and not being in a hurry, got all the time in the world, and just chilling, you know. And I think this is the kind of wine you want to drink on a relaxed kind of day like that.
No, I agree. I think and I know you're going to jump into the life pairings, and mine are a little different, but they kind of play off what you're saying.
Yeah.
There is, I do think this is a perfect summer day drinking wine.
Mm-hmm.
It's one on like a really hot day when you're chilling out on the porch at sunset, or when you're rafting down the river, and it's just boiling outside, or gardening in your yard and just like enjoying yourself in nature. Like this is a good one for just hanging out outside.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's literally like those are my pairings. Is hot day, beach, summer, river, exactly. And then in terms of food pairings, this pairs wonderfully with the fresh fruits you're tasting here. That watermelon, that kind of bright fruit, and Jerome pairs watermelon bites with this, which is watermelon, mint, and feta. Right?
Yeah, and you could do that other ways. That's one that I really enjoy because the watermelon, naturally, this has got a lot of watermelon, fresh fruit type of flavors, and the mint kind of plays off of the floral notes in this a little. The feta doesn't really play off of this as much. It plays off of those two ingredients and makes your nice, sweet, herbaceous, salty kind of pairing there. And I think it goes really, really well with this. Another one that I've paired with this before is a Thai style salad, which you can do either with watermelon or with cucumber or other like fresh, crunchy fruits, and then pair that with mint, Thai basil, cilantro, and then a dressing of fish sauce, lime, and Thai chilies. Might sound a little weird, but it really works well in the same way the first one does, because you've got this sweetness, you've got this herbaceousness, and then you've got like a salty funkiness, as well as a spice that works well with this, as playing off of the sweetness.
And so I think in this case, all of these pairings play off like the crispness, some of the fruit aspects, and generally this wine I think pairs well with things that are a bit spicy, because with spicy you don't want a dry tannic red wine. You want something, either white wine or rosé, that's either sweet or like soft and sweet tasting. It has that fruit characteristic. So I think this wine goes really well with spicy food. I love this with tacos, some lime, a little spice.
Yeah, anything Thai or Mexican is almost like a perfect pairing with this. Like al pastor tacos, or like just any kind of Thai dish is going to work really well with this.
Yeah. So exactly, any of these kind of spicy style cuisines. So with the tacos, I think that's a great lead in to my literary pairing, which is Tom Robbins in his book Jitterbug Perfume. He says, never underestimate how much assistance, how much satisfaction, how much comfort, how much soul and transcendence there might be in a well-made taco and a cold bottle of beer. So obviously this isn't a beer, this is a wine, but I think this is the kind of wine that captures that beer energy of just laid back, relaxed, hot summer day, having some tacos. And honestly, this is one of those wines that I make that I get a lot of feedback. It reminds people of almost a sour beer, like a fruity style sour beer. So it has kind of that energy.
I can very much see that in that beer reference. Like we were talking about with the skin contact, where the first one, the white, where you can enjoy that either chilled or kind of at room temperature and get the different profiles from it. This rosé, while it's done with a red grape, I'd say it's pretty much purely a chilled to the max type of wine. You want this one ice cold on a hot day, and it works really well that way.
Absolutely. So thank you guys for tasting through these first two wines with us. Now we're going to have our musical guests up here in a second. We have Ruby J and Aaron Franken, who are going to be performing a wonderful song they're going to be doing here in a second. They're going to set up, and we're going to clear out some of this wine. All right. Thank you, guys.
And you're welcome to pour your third wine and enjoy that while this is going on. Unless he edits me out.
Yeah. So that third wine you guys are going to be pouring for yourself, grab this while we're getting set up, is going to be the L8 Manifesto Barbera. So this is the same Barbera that went into that rosé, but made as a fully red wine. So a full 2-week fermentation on the skins. This is going to bring in a lot more of this black cherry, blackberry plum type fruit flavor. And so you're going to get a lot of these beautiful dark fruit flavors, but overall a smoother, lighter tannin, more balanced style red wine. with a nice crisp acidity. So I'll let you guys start tasting that and enjoy some beautiful music. Thank you guys.
Never spent so many minutes traveling so short a distance. I've never stared at one red light so long before in my whole life. I've never seen your face before, but you're in my dreams over and over, more and more. I've never known what true love is, and if it finds me, what if I won't know? It did. Traffic jam, slowing down my mind till I know I am. Traffic jams forcing me to analyze the space I'm in. I wonder how long this would take if there were no more cars on the highway. I wonder if I fell asleep behind the wheel, what would I be dreaming? You know I've never seen your face before, but you're in my dreams over and over, more and more. I've never known what true love is, and if it finds me, what if I won't know? It did. Traffic jam, slowing down my mind till I know I am. Traffic jams forcing me to analyze the space I'm in. Stuck in this traffic jam, slowing down my mind till I know I am. Stuck in this traffic jam, forcing me to analyze the space I'm in. Stop and go, making me start to show my vulnerability to the car next to me. I've never spent so many minutes traveling so short a distance. I've never stared at one red light so long before in my whole life. Can't stop this traffic jam, slowing down my mind till I know who I am. Can't stop this traffic jam, forcing me to analyze the space I'm in. Stuck in this traffic jam, slowing down my mind till I know who I am. Stuck in this traffic jam, forcing me to analyze the space I'm in. Traffic jams, slowing down my mind till I know who I am. Traffic jams, forcing me to analyze the space I'm in.
Woo! All right, thank you guys.
That was awesome. That's always my favorite part of the show. I mean, Kevin is so informative. I learn and entertaining. I learn something new every time I listen to him, even if we've done it 100 times. And of course, I like listening to myself talk. But they killed it.
Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, they've performed. You know, we do these weekly shows on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for our general tastings, and they performed throughout these last months and been huge supporters of our show. So thank you guys. So yeah, So now we're into that third wine, the L3 Manifesto Barbera. So yes, let's do the chalice.
So Kevin was talking about how it's the same Barbera grapes done in a different way as the rosé, and I find that I'm not the wine expert he is, but I find this really helpful in understanding wines more and not just enjoying them. And to try the same wine two different ways, and you can see the color difference, you can taste the difference in the flavor, and you can actually almost see it in the logos as well. They're like a day versus night, summer versus winter version of the same wine done with the same grape, and you really kind of taste those same fruity profiles, but darker fruit rather than your lighter fruit.
Yeah.
And instead of those herbaceous floral notes, you get like these dark baking spice notes. It's a really interesting contrast.
So it's one of those things with winemaking. A huge influence on the flavor of the wine is the skins, because the actual juice of a red grape is clear, so you can actually make a white wine with a red grape. When you make a rosé, it has a couple days of skin contact in this case. When you make a dark red wine, you're generally looking at a week to a month of skin contact, and those skins are extracting that color into the wine. They're also extracting that weight and that red wininess,
your tannins, and
so
body.
The tannins are what give you that dryness, bitterness, and astringency you get in red wines. So yeah, so this wine, the red version of the Barbera, has those characteristics, and so now you're going to get that black cherry, that blackberry, that plum note. And then this wine also has to it a definitive chocolatey maple molasses thing going on as well.
Yeah, I really enjoy that in this. The last vintage had that dark fruitiness, but didn't quite have that characteristic. And I really feel like that brings a lot to this vintage, having that kind of like chocolatey, note to balance off of those dark fruits, because that's a great pairing in and of itself. Right. But pairing that within the notes of your wine, it's really interesting.
So yeah, so exactly. So you're getting that dark fruit chocolate, those flavors are awesome together. And then that maple molasses note, part of what this is coming from is, Barbera naturally, it's a grape from northwest Italy, and it grows in the same region as Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo was the mountaintop wine of the rich, very rarefied. Well, Barbera was the grape of the people, and it made a wine that was fruit forward and just great for your Tuesday night dinner with family, paired well with food.
That was more like the peasant Italian grape, not the
not
elite,
the 1%.
Right?
Yeah. So then it was, it was the wine of the people, and it really was very popular. And when Italian immigrants came to California, the Sierra foothills, during the gold rush in the 1850s, they brought with them cuttings from their homeland and brought that to the foothills, planted them, I suppose, so they could have a little Barbera to drink while they were doing some gold mining. And that added up to them then having these vines in the foothills, and that continued to be propagated. And now we have the grandchildren, so to speak, of those vines that still remain in this region and are our hallmark grape that you really see Barbera continuing to grow in this region and being really the best wines. Makes that same style, beautiful fruit, and then aged in oak. So the Barbera gives those fruit flavors. Oak aging gives you a little more of that vanilla chocolate kind of characteristic you're seeing. And then oak barrels is what winemakers always age red wines in. But coming from a family of woodworkers, my brothers, our other brothers and our uncle and a lot of our family are woodworkers. And they asked me when I started making wine, why do we only make barrels for aging wine out of oak? And essentially the answer is it makes the best barrel, and it adds really nice flavors to wine. But other woods, when you're sawing them, or if you're a barbecuer, when you're grilling with them and smoking with them, you get really nice flavors from other woods. So why can't they add nice flavor to wine? Well, they don't make a good barrel, but you can add those woods to the wine and actually soak that flavor into the wine. So in this case, I used a little cherry wood, but also some maple wood, which I think really shows through more in this wine. And that maple wood gives this molasses maple kind of characteristic to the wine, which really adds to the richness of the flavor, but also aromatically a little bit.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's really interesting, and I appreciate that you did that with the woods, because it really does lend a different flavor profile to things. When you could use a maple wood and you get this maple syrup, molasses, brown sugar type of note. Yeah. You could use cherry in there, and you get this deep, dark fruitiness. You can use a hickory or cedar or something that's more aromatic and more outdoorsy, and it increases that note in it where it smells and tastes like campfire or like just
it's a whole new spice rack for me as a winemaker that, once I started experimenting with these other woods, winemakers kind of locked into oak. But all these other woods, they're no more extreme than oak. They're, in fact, a lot more subtle than oak in many cases. But they do add some really nice, subtle elements to the wine that help accentuate what's already there in the grape.
Yeah, so you'll see all of the wines have a base of oak because that is the barrels we use, and then put in staves of the other woods as flavor profile additions. Yeah. And that's something spent a long time before making these, doing trials with them, getting small batches of all of them and aging them with all these different woods and determining what worked with what. Your apple with your light ones and your cherry with your medium ones and your darker smoky woods with your dark reds. So
those are fun trials to do. You just keep mixing, blending, seeing what soaks up what flavor, trying. It's a hard job as a winemaker, but I enjoy it.
And it's actually kind of jokes around about that, but it was really interesting doing it because some of them were perfect pairings and were amazing, and some of them were just really, really bad. Like, why does this white wine have this like herbal spiciness going on, or like
the rosemary one?
So it wasn't like a purely straightforward thing. It took a lot of experimentation and trial and error, and I really liked the final effect, but it wasn't just
true. It's something I enjoy as a winemaker, stepping outside of the box and doing, innovating and adapting. We see that in our, doing these kits and doing these virtual tastings. It's just, we're a young, small company. I'm a young experimental winemaker, and I really enjoy just trying to push boundaries and trying new things. So, okay. This wine, my pairings. So, music pairing you can throw on Nina Simone's Feeling Good. Absolute classic. If you haven't heard the song, throw it on immediately. Just one of the most relaxing and yet like freedom-filled songs. It's such a beautiful song. And I just think this wine has that like, soulfulness that matches that song. And then that would be a good song to play during my life pairing, which is dinner with friends on an autumn night. Just kind of a cool evening. You're out on the porch, the veranda, whatever, having dinner with friends, kind of, out in the air.
Yeah, it's kind of the same as like we said with the rosé, but more of a night, autumn version rather than your summer day.
Exactly, right? So it's the same wine, just the light and dark version of it, right? So, because it doesn't have that like you want to drink it in the hot summer day as the rosé does, but it's not quite your like deep winter red wine, which we're going to get to in a little bit. This is more like your middle ground wine.
Doesn't have quite the spiciness or tannins or just it's still kind of fresh fruit.
Yeah. I've had some people say who are big Pinot fans that this is almost like Pinot Noir, like with just a little more going on. It's like getting a little darker fruit, but it still has that like smoothness and lightness of a Pinot Noir. So yeah, it's that good middle ground wine. And then food pairings for this. I know that you pair grilled fruit with this, and then you have a cool pork recipe as well.
Yeah, and I also, before I jump into that, I probably shouldn't be doing impromptu stuff here, but I thought of it as we were discussing it earlier. This would be fantastic with like a dark, almost bitter chocolate with black cherries, or like a chocolate covered cherry. Kind of covers a lot of those notes in here. But I also have a recipe that I've used before, and I actually do quite often with this wine, which is to take something like a pork tenderloin, or just any nice cut of pork, or even like a firm tofu, squeezed out to make it really extra firm and drained, or maybe even like a duck breast or something along those lines, but with cocoa powder, salt, and pepper, and cook that up, grill it, or do it on a cast iron and get a nice sear on it, and then pair that with a hoisin sauce or like a plum sauce, because then you balance not only those fruity notes but also those dark chocolatey notes, and then tie that all in with whatever your protein of choice is.
And especially like I love the hoisin plum sauce kind of thing going on, because this wine does have that like rich, that molasses note and the plum note of the fruit. Like I feel like that ties all that in together. And I think in a lot of food pairing with wine, one of the keys is the sauce. Like the base meat or vegetables is almost like it's not irrelevant, but it's actually almost less important than the sauce a lot of times in food and wine pairing.
Yeah, and that may sound a little funny, but we actually did a food and wine pairing dinner, and we had all these, like fancy, like the watermelon salad and shrimp with garlic butter sauce and grilled flank steak with bell peppers and onions. And by far the favorite amongst everybody there was the tofu with the cocoa rub and hoisin
was so
sauce.
good.
That just disappeared.
So by the way, I'm gonna go refill our studio audience's glasses here. But you guys can all pour yourself the L7 Delirium Cabernet Sauvignon as well. And the L7 Delirium Cabernet Sauvignon is going to be getting into a little bit more of a full-bodied red wine style. So that's going to be this guy right here. So this is, you're getting into a little bit more weight to the wine. Darker fruit, a little more spice, a little more earthy herbaceousness.
And all of your wines are very experimental and very off, the standard wines that you see on like grocery store shelves. But of all of them that we're tasting today, I would say this is the most like a typical red, so to speak, and that it's got that spice and tannin and just like full-bodied flavor to it without too much complexity.
True, and so I think Cabernet Sauvignon is just, it is the king of grapes, right? So you go to Bordeaux, France, this is the base of those blends, which are the most expensive and famous blend in the world. Thousands of dollars for left bank Bordeaux blends that are Cabernet Sauvignon based. That's the reason. There's good reason why this is the most planted grape in the world, and by far the most planted red grape in the world. It's just really the backbone of a lot of great wines. It expresses dark fruit flavors, some spice, some herbaceousness, a good weight to it. It's like, it's almost synonymous with like strong red wine.
And I also, in pouring it in my glass, noticed that the color seems quite different from the Barbera. Is that just purely because of the different varietal of grape, or the process, or
there's a few things going on there. The Barbera is a grape that has really great color to it.
Mm-hmm.
In spite of being a fairly smooth, lighter red fruit wine in some ways, it has really beautiful dark color to it that tends to be a little more purple in color.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Cabernet Sauvignon, you tend to get a little bit more of a deep red.
Right,
So
almost like a brick red.
Yeah, absolutely, especially considering the fact that this is a little bit older vintage. The Barbera is a bit younger, so younger wines tend to have a little bit more bright color, not quite fluorescent, but like more in the purple tone. Whereas as you get more aged, you get into more of a red color, and especially as you get older and older, you get into more of a brick red even. So you'll see that in some of our wines, especially the more aged ones, that you'll get a little bit of a brick red color. But then in the younger wines, you'll get more of a bright, intense coloration to it, especially in the red wines, more of a purplish color. Yeah. So you get, like I say, dark fruit flavors, a lot of the same ones you see in a lot of red wines, blackberry, plum. This one, I think you see some fig as well. And then you also get into, spice, but also like a chocolatey coffee note. A lot of that chocolate vanilla as well. So those are, primary fruit, chocolate, vanilla, coffee. Okay, awesome. Those are kind of, your like fruity, sweeter fruit flavors. And then you get into the secondary aspect where you get into black pepper, green pepper, herbaceous, foresty notes. And I accentuated that. That's natural in Cabernet Sauvignon, but I accentuated that by aging this on maple and hickory wood, but also cedar and cypress. Very woodsy woods, that really took that, kind of green foresty note to the next level.
And I think that really comes through. Like I liken that sometimes to, a lot of red wines, they have, they would be a great tomato pairing because they've got that ripe, fresh fruit, like sweetness. Yeah. But this almost would be a pairing with the tomatoes plus your fresh stems and leaves. You get that herbaceousness, that greenness coming through, kind of give you both sides of it.
So it's there aromatically, but you also get on the finish and that dryness, the little bitterness and astringency. And I have a lot of people tell me, like, because, I'm hyper-focused on it because I've done all these experimentations and I'm fine-tuning these flavors. But most people tell me, honestly, the main flavors I get are the fruit and the chocolatey vanilla-ness. And so that's kind of the dominant flavor for a lot of people. Those other things are all like those subtle wine geeky things that, winemakers, we tend to dive deep into those aspects. So then roll into some pairings here. My music pairing for this is from Erica Badu and her song Apple Tree. It's a very wonderful song. She says in that lyrically, she says, I pick my friends like I pick my fruit. My daddy told me that when I was only a youth. So I think this is a very deep song about, making conscious choices in your life and choosing your, people you surround yourself thoughtfully. And so, yeah, beautiful song. And I think this is a deep, thoughtful song, deep, thoughtful wine that matches that song.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And then, thank you. So then the literary pairing for this is from Cesar Chavez. And he says, if you really want to make a friend, go to someone's house and eat with him. The people who give you their food give you their heart. And so for me, sharing food, wine with people is just really important to me. And it's a big part of, what I value in life. And so I thank you all for sharing all this food and hopefully that you're having and this wine with us and joining us this evening.
Yeah, as much as, it helping us stay alive as a company, being an awesome part of these virtual tastings and getting to share this with you guys. But I think that connection, right now we all are craving that. We're all separated and isolated, and this is a great way to have an evening out to connect with other people, do the kind of things that we used to do before, the apocalypse came.
Right? Yeah, because we've had a lot of folks. I mean, we have a lot of corporate groups and different sized groups, but a lot of people are connecting with our tastings that's, friends or family they just haven't seen in a while because of COVID. Or maybe they're in different states or whatever, and it's a way to connect. Is like do this video, do this tasting, and join each other while joining us. So
it's like the highlight of my mom's week. She loves it.
So awesome.
Our moms.
So those are some of the pairings, and then food pairings for this. This is definitely a deeper, darker red wine. It goes great with steak, shiitake mushrooms, kind of those darker, deeper flavors. But I think there's a lot of other good pairings for this that incorporate like meatiness as well as pepperiness.
Yeah, like stuffed bell peppers, or like I was mentioning earlier, like the flank steak with peppers, onions. Almost something sort of like a Philly cheesesteak without the cheese, or I mean, you could have it with the cheese, or fajitas, or yeah.
And so if you're a vegetarian, sofritos, burrito style, like anything that has like a meaty component or like a dark sauce component with some pepperiness, like green herbaceous pepperiness plus, black pepper or spicy pepper goes great with this wine. So, and then lastly, my life pairings for this being a deep, dark, rich wine. I think this pairs wonderfully with building your own furniture. Also, riding a stallion into battle. Reading leather-bound books while sitting in your armchair at your desk made of rich mahogany. Or perhaps in the wintertime, drinking this wine while sitting by the fireplace.
So since you don't have a Burgundy wine, decided to go with a Ron Burgundy wine for this one?
Exactly. So yeah, if you guys have seen the movie Ron Burgundy, Anchorman, that's definitely a bit of a reference. Definitely.
The jokes are better when you explain them.
Yeah. That's my specialty.
Sorry.
Dad jokes. It's definitely a deeper, darker style wine that pairs well with kind of wintry experiences. So that is the fourth wine, the L8 Delirium Cabernet Sauvignon. Hope you all enjoyed that. And by the way, if you guys are enjoying the wines, you can buy all of these. They're all available on our websites, lucidwinery.com and voluptuarywine.com. We'll post them in the comments to this video on YouTube, and you can check that out. I'll send the links to anyone organizing events who are tasting here. We'll send you a PDF with information on how to order the wine, as well as some discount codes, especially for everyone doing these tastings.
Yeah, and this is just a small sampling of our wines. We've got, depending on when you order, anywhere from 12 to 20 different wines in circulation. So you can not only get all of those different bottles by the bottle, but we always have a few different tasting kit options as well. So while you have this one here, you could also try the new releases that aren't yet in circulation, or try different lineups that we've paired before, and they have different shows associated. So if you're interested in this and you want to have your own with your family, with your friends, for a bachelorette party or a wedding or a corporate Christmas party, you don't have to relive the same experience. We got plenty of options, or the option of doing a live tasting with you on Zoom.
Yeah, absolutely. So through these public tastings, we have all sorts of different themes, whether it's a fundraiser for a nonprofit or a trivia or a bingo night or a Father's Day. You know, we've done all sorts of different public tastings, but for our private tastings, we also offer a really nice selection of, you know, something similar to what we're doing here on this recorded tasting, but we'll do them, like you said, on Zoom, and we can add in elements of trivia night or bingo or winemaker's secrets with blind tasting. So there's all sorts of different customization options on how to do your private tasting on Zoom.
And that's where my expertise comes in. Kevin's a wine expert. He can lead you through the blind tasting. He can show you all the wines. But when it comes to your wacky fun, like the trivia or the bingo or the food pairing, give me a call.
Yeah. And if you haven't figured it out by this point in the night, he's the funny brother. So if you guys are wanting the more laid back fun tasting, he's like, don't oversell me, bro. So yeah, we both do great tastings, and then we also have Stacy Luther, who does our other tastings, and a lot of you guys are interacting with directly, and she hosts a wonderful tasting as well, and has a big background in team building for corporate groups. So in case.
So you have the three different approaches. You know, Kevin's your wine expert, Stacy's your group organizing, team building expert, and I'm the guy who'll keep you entertained.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, something for everyone. So that being said, we'll roll into our fifth and final wine, the L8 Wanderlust Red Blend. So this is our most popular wine across the board. It is a red blend of...
You run out of chalices.
Right, yeah.
Chali.
Plural, chalice. There you go. Huh. Learn something every day. So the L8 Wanderlust Red Blend is a blend of 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, 25% Barbera, and 25% Zinfandel.
So it's these last two wines we tried, plus another one added in.
Exactly. So the Cabernet Sauvignon provides that backbone. The Barbera brings in a fruit-forward, aspect to the wine, and then the Zinfandel brings in more of a jammy, baked, ripe fruit aspect. So you get this really nice mix that, it balances all these extreme flavors of the three components while resulting in a wine that is complex but integrated and balanced. So it's in many ways one of our most intense wines, but also one of our smoothest.
Yeah, and I think that's a good description for it, because you used a lot of the most intense wines with really intense woods and all these extreme flavors. But because you did it as a blend, it kind of balanced out, the peaks and the valleys of the flavor, and just gives you this really smooth, dark wine that just has all of those flavors, but none of them pushing it beyond the envelope.
Nothing too extreme, yeah. So that's what I was going for in this blend. I wanted something that, the three wines that went into this are $28, $28, and $38. This one's $18. There's really no reason why I did that, except that I wanted to make a wine that was like everyone would enjoy and everyone can afford. So it's a wine that should be like double what it costs, but it's not. It's just a deliciously balanced, affordable wine.
So this is your sweet spot if you guys are looking for one to buy per bottle.
Yeah. Yeah, we sell a lot of this. So so that's some of the making behind it. Other than those grapes that went into it, they're all Sierra Foothills grown, locally grown grapes. Some of you may be wondering, where are you guys getting your grapes from? I don't go into too much extreme detail on that during the live tasting or during this recorded one, just because, in the detailed tasting notes we've sent to all of you guys, or that if you're, ordering off the website that you can find on the website, we go into all those geeky wine details, and I'm already prone to going on rambles about my winemaking, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but all of that can be found in our detailed wine tasting notes. But all of these are foothills grown, and, you get really ripe fruit flavors from that fruit of those components. But then I aged this on oak, also maple, hickory, and a little bit of charred whiskey style American oak that gives you a little bit of that smokiness on top of all that really ripe fruit, which I think is a really cool component.
Yeah, it's one of the best components of that. You get that smokiness, you get that like carbon char type of note, but and a little bit of like those I want to say like vanilla notes that gets brought out by the charring, but without like so many of the whiskey oak wines that you have out there. They focus so intensely on that it kind of overwhelms the wine, and you end up with something that you don't really get to taste the fruitiness. You don't get to
Yeah.
taste the spiciness because all you have is like this whiskey overnote rather than like a whiskey undertone.
In this case, I tried to keep it at a nice balanced level where it is like it adds to the fruit, it adds to the characteristic of the wine without taking over it. So hopefully you're all enjoying that aspect. In terms of pairings, this wine is called Wanderlust after all. And so my music pairing for this is Me Gustas Tu by Manu Chao. And this is a song that it's just such a fun, upbeat song. And it's kind of a traveler's anthem of like most of the last 20 years. If you're traveling, visiting hostels or some foreign country, you'd hear this song. This is a musician who sings in like 5 different languages. And this song in particular is just really upbeat. And, literally the lyrics are like, I like cooking. I like you. I like wine. I like you. And it's just a really upbeat kind of fun vibe to the whole song. So that's the music pairing. And then my life pairing for this is, again, Wanderlust, being adventurous, camping under the stars, whether, with family, with your lover, whatever the case may be, camping, adventuring, that kind of overall vibe.
Yeah, around a campfire or hanging out in the backyard around a barbecue. Like, I really see this. Like, I understand the wanderlust and the traveling, but to me, that smoky note is what most
Campfire
comes out from this, and where you would want anywhere that you've got a burning fire, especially late at night, is a great place to enjoy this.
Yeah, true. So, and then,
so California, anywhere basically right now.
Too soon. So, and then on that note, food pairings, great pairing for barbecue. Anything grilled, steak. But this is a wine, again, it's like, it's complex, but it's also laid back. So you can pair this with burgers, with hot dogs. I mean, you don't have to go too crazy with this. This pairs with more laid back barbecue food.
Yeah, I agree. Pizza or burgers or whatever. I mean, it also like said, anything with char marks on it from your open fire. Whether it's a steak or whether it's mushrooms or anything.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that's the food pairings, and then lastly, our literary pairing is from Hippocrates, and he says, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." And again, especially amidst the apocalypse and COVID and everything, we want to eat healthy and drink healthy, and we do make everything organic and vegan and sulfite-free and additive-free and about as healthy as you can get while still getting tipsy. So we try to do our part, and hopefully we're contributing to you guys having a nice, healthy, balanced food and wine diet here. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us. It's always a pleasure tasting these wines with everyone. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me at kevin@voluptuarywine.com. And yeah, we really appreciate everyone joining us and tasting through everything with us. Yeah, it's a good time. So thank you again. We will see you all soon, hopefully. Feel free to rebook us or refer us around. And if you would like to order any wine, you can order it off lucidwinery.com or voluptuarywine.com, and you can use the code ORGANIC, and that will get you $20 off any purchase of $100 or more. And then, a lot of you are spread out across the U.S., and you're going, oh gosh, okay, that's a nice discount, but it's going to be like $60 for shipping. Well, free shipping with the code FREESHIP. That'll get you free shipping anywhere in the U.S., $100 or more. So those are ridiculous discount codes. Those literally will put us at a loss if you use both of those in order just like $100 of wine. So our whole thing is we want to share wine. We want to get our wine out there. We're a young, small wine company, and we're growing like crazy. But a big part of my focus is just sharing wine with everyone. Even if I'm not making money off of it, I just want wine in your glass. I want you to be sharing this wine with your friends. So please order a bunch of wine, share it with your friends. Join us again. Thank you all so much for supporting our urban industrial micro winery, Voluptuary Wine, Lucid Wine here. Again, thank you all, and have a great night.
Pleasure sharing the evening with you.